How you doing, everybody? This is Brainsmasher's channel of metallic horribleness. And I've got a guest today.
Hello.
His name's Tanner. He's one of my good buddies, and I talk about him in a lot of my videos.
That's me.
He's in one of my favorite bands, Arcturus. All the way from Norway. Anyways, we're doing a video today together, and I love that I have the chance to be able to bring guests in to do a channel for you that is twice as good as everybody else's channel, because they only have one person, and sometimes I have two.
Yeah.
So you get double the bonus mediocrity.
Yeah.
So today's topic that we're going to do together is challenging albums. Now, I literally didn't spend very much time on this topic today, because we've been doing a lot of stuff, but I picked out challenging albums, so in no way are these the most challenging albums that my mind can possibly think of. But these albums that I've chosen are challenging, and there you have it. He chose 3 albums, I chose 3. I only had a copy of one of them, so 2 of them you won't see copies of. I'll get them because they're on my Discogs wish list. But you'll just see them when he talks about them. So, yeah, I guess that's where we're going with it. What's your first pick?
Yeah, my first pick is a band from Sweden called Miscreant. The album is called Dreaming Ice. Came out on Wrong Again Records, which is an interesting label just because they put out so few albums, but everything they released was a band that kind of went somewhere, like Cryptopsies, None So Vile, Eucharist, Velvet Creation, the First In Flames album, Arch Enemy. So many bands. So, like, with a roster like that, it's really an interesting study, the bands that didn't go somewhere, like Excretion,
Right.
you know, or In Thy Dreams or whatever. But in any case, Miscreant, which Ben said he could edit into my hands here, Dreaming Ice is a cool album just because it works in a different way. And I feel like in the, you know, the kind of early to mid 90s in Sweden, you could kind of just grasp thin air and pull out a lot of interesting influences. So this is kind of like death metal with its bangs growing out, turned to melodic death metal. Really interesting harmony and melodic elements, really long phrasing. Kind of play between bass and guitar work. The drums are cool too, just because the guy clearly isn't playing a double kick like either pedal or whatever. And then it's Johnny Ranning doing vocals, and he's pretty versatile. He can do the kind of black rasp style, the grunting low stuff, and then he can also do the sort of desperate yearning, kind of like poetic parts that are needed in so much of that kind of dramatic in between melodic death stuff
that like only Swedes can pull off for some reason.
Yeah. He later achieved some success in Ebony Tears, which is just an awful band.
Oh.
I think he was in Dogface Gods, because I saw that name in like every zine. Monogram. Anyway, Miscreant.
Monogram?
Yeah, Monogram.
Oh, really?
I think he was in Monogram.
Okay.
But yeah, you should check out Miscreant Dreaming Ice. It's challenging because of all the elements I described. You'll figure it out yourself. It's also one of those albums where, like, the first track to the 9th one, like, it gets progressively better. Like, the first one you're like, second one it's like, yeah. By the end of it you're like, fuck yeah. You know, like, you gotta listen to that all again. It's so good.
So you really got to dig into the album before it starts giving up its gravy.
It's for heads, man.
But so it's kind of like one of those things that's like not necessarily a death metal record, because it's not brutal, it's not really all that intense.
Right.
It's just kind of one of those Swedish albums that's neither black nor death. It's just a Swedish metal album that's interesting and weird.
This is where conversation points get dangerous, because we could rant about that forever.
Right.
It's like you think of all those. For whatever reason, I was thinking like No Fashion Records that had that roster too. Like Winterland is a band everyone knows now, but like Pear was in Maze of Torment, which is like a Creator ripoff with sad moments. It's like all that stuff. Basically, like I feel like if you inject sadness, the first Maze of Torment.
Yeah.
I digress.
By the way, we're listening to, since you're going to ask anyways, I say this every video, but you guys still ask, hey, what are you listening to in the background? So, fuck off. But this is Therions of Darkness. Get this.
Yeah.
So, it's my turn. My pick is, I have this on vinyl. I should have shown the vinyl to make you drool, but this is the correct cover artwork, by the way. This is a Misanthropy version of Vedbo and Zen's Written in Waters. I just did what I said I wasn't going to do. Cover your face. Written in Waters is a really immersive experience, man. It's got like, it's almost like the Norwegians heard death metal, didn't want to play death metal, and this style really, I don't think they were really paying attention to what like Dark Throne was doing or anything at that time, so I wouldn't say they were going for anything really all that black or deathish, but it definitely has a lot of like goth influence to it. And so in a way, Vedboen Zen kind of reminds me of like almost like Sisters of Mercy in a way sometimes, but also kind of like a progressive black metal thing in a way. It's really hard to pull out those anchors of influence for a band like Vedboen Zen because of how wholly original it is. They're doing weird choral clean vocals like in 93 and 94 for like 16-year-old kids to be doing that in Norway when everyone else was burning churches and doing their stuff. I mean, Ulver was kind of doing it right, but Vedboen Zen is just wholly original, and the way that they harmonize like those clean vocals with the clean guitars and kind of had like that shimmering almost post-rock 90s sort of guitar work to it, but then to have it all dressed with this amazing percussion, like this is some of the best drumming I've ever heard on a metal record. There's really nothing all that intense about it until you get to track 7, where it just gets really intense and awesome. And like that's the only spot where it really sounds like something else that was going on at that time with their country mates and brethren and stuff. But yeah, like it's a really strange thing to listen to, and it can't be talked about enough. I think it's in the way like a lot of people say, oh, that's like the avant-garde sort of jazzy, proggy kind of stuff, and of course that's just where it falls into categorically most comfortably. But I think this album in particular is one of the most original things to come out of Norway in the 90s, and I just can't say enough great things about it. And I hope someday I finish my documentary about Carl Michael, because it's going to have a lot of love for this album in it. So yeah, Vedboen Zen, Written in Waters. If you haven't heard it, what are you doing? Next, you have a copy of it.
Yeah, I do. It's one of yours, but I have it as well.
This is the one I have a copy of.
Also, I just want to point out, which is probably important before an album like this too, and it kind of adds what you were saying about Vedboen Zen, is like challenging albums. I think kind of like there are albums that challenge me now, but I feel like the ones that challenge you when you're young are the ones that stick with you.
Right.
You know, like obviously there are a lot of albums that I think we probably find more challenging outside of metal nowadays, but this is the stuff that was just like really, you know, it wasn't challenging in the way where the first listen was completely offensive as much as it just really grew on you, and you felt kind of invested in it. You know?
Right.
So.
And I think it also challenges you to ask of other albums how much it's going to challenge you, because you say, I can sit there and still scratch my head about Vedboen Zen's Written in Waters rather than listen to this new band, you know?
Yeah.
But Mordor.
Yeah, so moving on.
Talk about challenging.
Yeah. Mordor is a Swiss band. There are a shitload of Mordors. That's the Swiss one.
Yeah.
That's their second album, I believe. It's on Wild Rags, which is a label you talk about quite often in your videos. Cheche, am I saying that right?
Chete.
He knows how to say it.
I met the guy from Grimoire, Chete. That's how he pronounced it, and I was like really proud that I went to the effort of remembering to ask the guy.
Yeah.
So how do you pronounce your band name? Chete was a great live band, but Mordor.
Yeah, so Mordor is kind of a really strange band to describe. You know, they're Swiss, so they don't sound like they're countrymen, especially around that time. Like you think like Elastis, Samael, Sadness, etc. I guess they do kind of have a really dark thing happening. I guess at the end of the 80s they were, you know, in black metal and noise bands that all had the letters A-G-O-R in them, and they're switched in different orders. I never heard any of that shit, but I just remember. Anyway, so like the stuff is the first album was kind of slow, sort of people associate this with proto-funeral doom, but I think it's more just because it sort of has that one dirge just riding on the tonic, kind of like we were talking about Runes of Beverast earlier today.
Yeah.
And it's really uncomfortable because it sort of bleeds all these genres that were kind of later established, like what is sort of like this creepiness of second wave black metal with some of the more avant-garde elements of industrial music.
And there's a lot of vampiric sort of goth element almost to it.
Yeah.
Like,
There's,
that's what they were going for, but they didn't really pull that influence from anywhere else externally, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, like you'll hear vocals that are just like these chants and then kind of grunts, and then like a woman will just scream something for no reason. It's just totally bizarre and uncomfortable, and there's a lot of musical restraint used. There's a lot of kind of half-finished riffs.
Yeah.
Like before it has a chance to really transition, it transitions, and you're kind of forced to accept that.
Right.
And the drum machine, most importantly, like I think it's a drum machine. I'm positive it is. It's just I'm questioning that because I think I saw a live video where an actual drummer played as poorly as the drum machine. And it sounds like they're just like hitting it along while they're doing it.
It's so sparsely written that it's hard to imagine someone writing it, really. It almost sounds incidental or...
Yeah, it's very
improvised.
theatrical, and like, you know, all those points aside, those aren't criticisms or like ripping on it as much as just like, you know, it's a tough pill to swallow at first, or it was for me, and it's now become like one of my favorite bands. I mean, I love that album. And there's, if you can look it up, there's some unreleased demo like Dominasaura Christina. I think it's about a dominatrix named Christina. I don't know how that translates, but she says some pretty amazing things.
I'll find it and link you below,
Yeah,
so you know. When I listen to that album, I just feel like I'm like doing something egregious, sweltering in the summer sun for some reason. Like no other album really makes me feel that, but it just like it's uncomfortable. It's like almost claustrophobic in a way, and it's like once you've invested so much achievement, I guess, into an album, it stays there, and you want to revisit it because you've put that much work into an album, and you don't want to just turn your back on it. So like, how would you differentiate amateur versus originality, amateurishness in this versus originality? Because I feel like a lot of people on my channel are going to listen to this and go, that's really amateurish and dog shit. But I agree with you. We're probably the only two here they're going to be talking like being evangelical about this album.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're in agreement here, so that's something to be said, honestly.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things too. You can't ever convince anyone that something means something. It just means something to us, I guess. So.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll like it.
Try it on.
Yeah.
So another one I chose is Arcturus's La Masquerade Infernale. On LP, yeah. So, first of all, it was challenging because I was really not expecting this much of a departure from black metal, and their debut is quite iconically Norwegian black metal. There's a few leanings outside of the genre that make it a little bit original that maybe kind of foreshadow what would have happened here, but who would have thought that Simon Hesnes would join the band and just turn this into like an operatic, avant-garde, circusy sounding... It's not even a black metal record in any sense of the word. It's just like symphonic, I guess, theatrical sort of metal. But talk about one of the most amazing, clean vocalists in metal I've ever heard, in my opinion. This dude, Simon Hesnes, is a fucking god among vocalists as far as I'm concerned. And this is where I first fell in love with him, man. I never even thought, okay, clean vocals wasn't really a new thing to me in metal, but to hear it done, like, wow, my parents would probably think he's a good singer or something. Yeah. Surely you remember putting on an album and go, my mom might like this. No, you're fucking wrong, but you think that at first. You're like, maybe I can sneak this by mommy. But yeah, talk about a fucking strange album. To this day, I couldn't even say, like, what were they thinking? What were they influenced by to pull off an album like this? I really liked how, in a way, they kind of crafted this style for this album, and then they did sham mirrors, and that it was almost like, okay, let's just keep going with that. Let's not try and reinvent the wheel again. Let's do it maybe a little bit better. And so it was a little bit more tired and a little bit more beat into perfection. So I like that it was an idea that they came up with and kind of held on to for a while. I don't really like Sideshow Symphonies or whatever that is that much. But I like that they were just like, this is kind of our identity. We found our identity and this is the way it is. But talk about challenging, if you're, especially in the time period that I was, just gobbling up Norwegian black metal as much as I could, and then just like to go to the store and wind up with something like this in your lap. talk about a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't what I wanted.
Especially if you kind of came off Asperium Symphonia, where it's just like, what's happening? This is the longest intro.
Yeah. And I guess what it speaks to in the end is that Sverd, the synth player, I think wrote most of these songs, and he wound up writing. He was the one who made a lot of the songs in Covenant. I have a lot of respect for Sverd in making Arcturus what it is. They just happen to have a couple of the greatest vocalists that have ever been in Norwegian black metal. And I really liked, what's his name? Carl August Tiedemann, the guitar player.
Yeah.
Really great player. He's also in another band called
Winds.
Tritonus.
Was he in Winds?
He was in Winds, yeah. Tritonus is really good, too. But, yeah, I can't really think of a lot of more to say about how challenging this is, but it's like operatic, proggy, strange, just nothing else is really like this in the metal realm. So yeah, Arcturus, La Masquerade for now, link below.
There's a digital cookie for anyone who has the CD version, at least I'd assume the original.
I've never gotten that to work. I downloaded the MP3
Really?
of it though.
If you rewind it right at 0 seconds, there's like a bunch of reversed music and then strange shit. Yeah, check it
When
out.
I first found that out, I couldn't get it to work, but I tried that on all my CDs at
Yeah.
the time. Fuck, that was a waste of time because none of them did it.
Yeah.
Except for Blood Duster's Yeast. It does that. So your next one.
Oh yeah. Okay. So here's another one that Ben's gonna put in. It's Cataclysm Sorcery.
Talk about sorcery.
Yeah, sorcery. Black magic. So I don't really have a lot to say about this. I'm kind of confused now why I picked it. It's just it's just one of those albums that like all my friends just loved Cataclysm and or this album in particular. I know they became kind of a technical death metal band of sorts, maybe. I never heard Temple of Knowledge, anything after that. So really, I think I kind of hit this one and whatever that EP, the Mystical Gate of Incarnation, whatever. But I guess just to keep it short and sweet, the thing that really threw me off about this is like it almost sounds like a shitty version of like Sinister, in a way, only with like a desperate vocalist that doesn't want to follow meter. And like the first time I ever heard like a 4/1 blast, which is just, you know, an insane thing. You can probably find a million drummers on YouTube demonstrating that, but it's just really strange, but it's also something I feel myself like, or I constantly seem to return to that album just for the energy of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's really it. I can't tell you why it's...
Were you saying though that like in a way this album, they were trying to step out of their boundaries and they really didn't have any ideas or references to or tools to allow them to do that. So they're really just like taking ideas that were already there and just kind of breaking them or twisting them so that they were in a way kind of bad ideas. But they wound up just kind of being charming enough that you would say like, you know, that's maybe not a bad idea. That's something to consider.
Yeah, the end point of that I definitely agree with. I don't remember saying at the beginning, but it does make sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then sometimes, you know, that can be like what you go back to an album for, like how amateurish it is, and like sometimes a bad idea that happened in 1993 might be refreshing to listen to.
Yeah. Or
20 years after the fact.
Come back into favor.
Yeah. So that's your three. My last pick, I guess I didn't spend a lot of time, like I said, picking these, but Summonings minus Morgul. Now, I did like this when I first put it on, but I did feel like, I guess this was the first album I listened to, first Summoning album I listened to, and from the get-go I was really, really into it. But when I first heard it, I think it's the second track on here, Lugbers. Maybe it's still wondering. There's a track on here I think you'll probably know. It sounds like Björk. 90s Björk, and like it was just so interesting to hear something so fucking out of left field, using these cheesy synths and like shitty drum machines, but not even compromising anything as far as songwriting in an epic black metal style. Like these songs, to me, even though they have amateurish sort of tools in their tool belt, they still manage to write songs that evoke Lord of the Rings and Tolkien-ish sort of soundscapes better than so many other bands who have drummers and and real synthesizers and whatnot. And that's because I think I said this in my summoning tribute, the triple CD summoning tribute. And I think that what it is like, since the Tolkien world is something that's so far removed from our reality, that when you hear music that is also so far removed from what you're used to hearing, like real drummers and like more composed symphonies or whatever, that it almost seems to meet up with that alternate reality in a way that it makes sense in a way. And so like the bands that were on that summoning tribute, in a way, when they sounded a little bit more down to earth and recognizable and tangible, I felt like they kind of lost that fantasy sort of element in the atmosphere to what they're trying to portray in their songs. And that was really a big thing for me to try and get toward, and that made me respect a lot of bands who were willing to take chances on sounding like crap or having shitty drummers and just going with it and saying, you know what, I don't care how it's played, this song is great.
Yeah.
I've written a great song about marching homewards and through the forest of Dol Guldur. Would it somehow managed to be convincing, even though it sounds like nothing else. Like, it just harkens to such a time of like picking through a black metal catalog in the 90s and just going, I don't have any idea what this is like, but I'm expecting black metal, and you don't really get it all that much. You get something that's not what you were expecting, and it's challenging, and it winds up being how you grow into the men that we are today.
Yeah, maybe don't listen to any of these. Yeah, it is cool to be able to listen to something like this and have a sort of different little reality to slip in, and something that's not like an insulting listen. Like, now you can almost parody what Lord of the Rings worlds are like, you know, not just because of movies, but it's fun, like, to be able to use your own imagination with music, and challenging music certainly provides a great opportunity to do that.
And now we have all the technology at our fingertips to be able to pull off anything and make it sound like an orchestra or a symphony. But I tend to find I hear bands doing something so well, but I wish they were taking more risks and challenging listeners more often. Yeah. And so that's why I want to do this video. And that brings us to the end of our video. We're going to go hang out with cats.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.